Once again, my name is Chris Bamber from PFM Financial Advisors. We're the township's financial advisor. And we're here tonight to talk about a potential refinancing opportunity related to one of the township's existing series of bonds. Just as a brief market update, basically tax exempt interest rates continue to remain at or near all-time lows as the market, kind of digests the economic impacts of COVID-19. We have seen U.S. Treasuries increase in yield over the last few weeks or over the last few months, but fortunately, tax exempt yields, which is fortunately the type of debt that the township issues, has held in there over the last few weeks. And we have a chart that kind of demonstrates that. The opportunity related to some of the existing debt is the series of 2016 bonds. As we see here, it's just about $7.2 million outstanding. And the existing rate on this is really low. It's only about 2%. So, given where interest rates are, we do think we're able to squeeze out a little bit more savings. But this is by no means something where we're refunding down from 3.5% or something like that, where we've done in years past. So certainly a good problem to have that your existing debt is such low interest rate, but something that we hope to potentially monopolize or to take advantage on. Because in bullet point number C there, in August of 2021, that's when these bonds become callable, which is basically when the township can refinance them. These bonds do have a very short call date or a very short final maturity date, meaning they're not very long in length. They only go out till August of 27. So there's only about 6.5 years left on them. So the point is that this opportunity certainly looks like it will produce net savings in the current interest rate environment, and that's what takes us to bullet point number 3 here. Is that assuming a tax exempt current refunding, which will be done in May of 2021, that produces approximately about $150,000 of net debt service savings, which is just a hair over 2% of refunded principal. So when we think about, once again, the 2021 refunding opportunity, it's mainly the 2016 bonds. I know in years past, every time the township has considered previous refinancing opportunities, it certainly has a capital improvement plan that it looks to finance both with existing reserves, existing grants, what have you, as well as additional new money bond issuances, as we call them. And I know in years past that the board has considered potentially adding on to new money whenever we're doing refinancings, just to realize economies of scale with certain cost of issuance. So just for illustrative purposes, what we've included in the handout tonight is if the township did want to move forward with the refinancing and did want to add on certain amounts of new money for various capital projects, what we've shown here just for illustrative purposes is 3 options. One that adds $1 million, one that adds $2 million. And then as we see here in bullet point number 5C, another one that adds about $2.5 million. And the reason that $2.5 million is not 3 is because in the IRS tax exempt world, $10 million is a magic number. Because that makes these bonds what's known as bank qualified, which is basically like a tax exempt version with a sprinkle that makes it a little bit more attractive for investors. And basically, anytime the township can issue an under $10 million per calendar year, it can issue as bank qualified bonds, which have slightly lower interest rates and slightly shorter call dates. So for these purposes, we were showing an option that is only $2.5 million as the final option. And the reason for that being that would keep our total proceeds under $10 million for this issuance. When we think about kind of next steps, and then we'll get into the numbers here to demonstrate some of the specifics, but when we think about next steps, we're not looking for any sort of action tonight from the board. This is just simply an introductory meeting, introduction of a concept. We do have a timeline at the end of this we'll talk about that looks at maybe some of the next steps about where action may be required. But for the moment, this is just informational and to give a general idea about where things are. So with that kind of the topics go out, I'll go into the detail here, but please interrupt with any questions along the way if there are any. Just quickly where we are with interest rates. This is a chart of 10-year MMD. Think about this like the tax exempt cousin of the 10-year US Treasury that you see on CNBC. The good news is that if you look in the bottom chart, which is the kind of blown up portion since 2019, we're basically hovering at or near all-time lows that we saw around Labor Day of this year in 2020. So definitely a very advantageous time to issue. especially if you're a very highly rated credit issuer. The township had a AAA rating assigned to it last year, which you should be very proud of. And in this market, having a high credit rating like that will greatly pay off in terms of what interest rate you pay, because as you see, where interest rates are very low, investors typically demand that high credit rating. This is just a summary of all the township's existing debt as it stands right now. Once again, we're just focusing in on the 2016 bonds, which is the one highlighted there in yellow. As I mentioned, it's pretty short in maturity. It only goes out to 2027. But the point is when we look at this page, which is page 4 of our handout, when we look at just simply a refinancing of those bonds, if we look in columns 5 and 6, this is a comparison of what the new debt service would look like versus the existing to compare the savings, and that's that approximately $150,000 that I had mentioned previously. Most of it would be realized in the first year, and then kind of it would go back up to basically where it was before, starting in the following next few years. So this is the base case scenario where once again we're just simply refinancing debt, replacing an old slightly low interest rate at 2% with something hopefully lower that generates these net savings. The next few pages are once again just for illustrative purposes, because I know the township has looked at this in the past, where, for example, what does it look like if we add in an additional $1 million of new money and structure it to amortize after the existing debt of the township drops off here in 2028. The point is that, I'll let you kind of cycle through these and see these details, but the incremental costs of, say, doing $1 million of new money, say $2 million of new money, or that kind of magic $2.5-ish million that gets us to $10 million total. Once again, that was just a preliminary set of options as we look at a potential refinancing opportunity for the township in calendar year 2021. Before I'll kind of round out here with an estimated timeline, as I mentioned, this is just simply an introduction to the board tonight. We're not looking for any sort of action. But if we did want to get onto a timeline where we're considering this kind of as things come up at the February 16th meeting, if the township wanted to move forward with this, we would just look for like a head nod authorization to proceed. It's like a motion basically. And that would allow us, and more importantly, the bond council to go and prepare all the necessary documents. And where we would come out at is in the March 15th board meeting is when we look to adopt that parameters ordinance, which is that more lengthy document created by bond council that contains all the specifics about how the bond issue will be issued. We would look to do that potentially in March, which means that we would potentially pricing the bonds in April and settling once again in kind of mid-May, which gets us within that 90-day window that we need to meet. So this is an overall timeline here, and I know I've gone through this very quickly, but happy to answer any questions about the timing, about the refunding, or about any of the additional information that we've presented here tonight.
Anybody have any questions? Ms. Strauss?
I'm going to ask a question and try to make it make sense. I'm looking at your summary of outstanding indebtedness on page 3, I think, of your handout. The last column talks about our total debt service. I was hoping to see, and this might be a combination of you, Chris, and maybe Ms. Bandari pulling some stuff together. I'd like to see a chart of what our total outstanding debt is over the past decade, because I do like when we do these refinancings, we've done these several times, and we add some money onto it. I get nervous that I don't want to be increasing the township's total indebtedness overall. Does that make sense? And I can't quite get there from this table.
No, absolutely. I'd be happy to report back with the administration on that information. It's between the financial statements and what we have here on file, I'd be happy to look at it. And just generally as we look at this page, is on page 3, the existing debt service is about $2.6 million. We can obviously provide the numbers, but basically that I would imagine that's comprised of at least $2 million of principal repayment.
Right.
So, kind of every year that the township moves on through its debt service, it repays or knocks off, close to $2 million at least per year of principal repayment. So happy to provide that information, both looking backwards as well as looking prospectively as well.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Strauss. Anybody else? Okay, so there's no action needed tonight. Thank you for the presentation, and we will let you know probably at our next meeting if we're going to move forward or not.
Great. Well, thank you very much for
Thank
your time, everyone. Have a great night.
thank you, Mr. Bamber. Item number 7, consideration of authorizing a change order to the building access control system upgrade in the amount of $16,502. Ms. Burkus, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and fellow board members. I'm here this evening to ask the board to consider a change order for the building access control system in the amount of $16,502. If you recall, the board approved this project in November of 2020. Installation is going very well and is almost complete. And the quote on the new system was based on reusing some of the infrastructure and legacy items of the existing swipe access system. As the upgrade went into actual work on site, we found out that a few of the items that we hoped to repurpose and reuse were not accessible and weren't able to be brought back online. There was some wiring that had to be changed, control box enclosures, battery backups that were in those enclosures just weren't going to work well with the new system. And these deficiencies came up to an amount of $6,696 to be able to complete the system as a full, complete, and warranted running system. Also, during installation, the contractor discovered that there were 5 more points of access that could be added to the system that would complete our envelope of safety. There are exterior doors at Public Works that can be brought into this system. And there's another door in the administration building that, if brought online, would be very secure and helpful to the employees here. That quote is in the amount of $9,806 for 5 additional access points. And this is a good time to do this, as if we visit this issue later and do it as a separate project, it would be much more costly than to do it now while the system is still being installed and programmed. So again, I'm asking for $6,696 for additional components for the original project and an additional $9,806 for 5 additional access points. So the actual change order to the 2020 capital budget would be $16,502. Any questions?
Just one, Ms. Burkus. The access at the Public Works building, there's 3 of them over there. Is that what would need it? Or how many additional ones are over there at
There are
the Public
4
Works?
going to the Public Works building. And those are the doors, the single doors that exist by the work bays. Now, in the wintertime, the large garage doors are kept closed, but those doors are kept unlocked and people can come in and out. And this would put them online with the swipe system.
Okay, because usually in the summertime, the bay doors are open all day long, correct? So
In
they
the
would
summer,
be able to get in
that
and
is
out.
correct,
Yeah.
but there are also more people running in and around that can keep an eye on things going on there. And this way we don't run the issue of, let's say everybody closes everything down and doesn't lock one of the doors and someone's able to get into the building after hours. That would eliminate that problem.
Okay. Anybody else got any questions for Ms. Burkus? Okay, where are we at here? I move to approve the change order for the building access control project in the amount of $6,906 and the 5 additional access points at $9,806 for a total of $16,502. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seeing a motion and a second, is there any board questions? Any public questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nay? Ayes have it, 5-0. Thank you, Ms. Burkus.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Chair, if I may briefly speak on another topic. We
Okay.
just heard from Waste Management this evening that due to the continuing storm, their original plan was they were not going out and picking up trash and recycling today on Monday, and they were going to pick up Monday on Tuesday and Tuesday on Wednesday. However, conditions are severe enough that they do not anticipate being able to collect trash and recycling for the Tuesday routes tomorrow. So what they are targeting to do is on Wednesday, they will pick up recycling throughout the entire township. And then on Thursday and Friday, they will visit the regular Thursday route, but collect double trash like we would now on a holiday. And the same thing with the Friday route, they will take double trash. And they are guaranteeing to take what trash is put out. They will work until everything is collected to at least complete collection by the end of this week for everyone.
Can we get that schedule on the website and maybe on our Facebook page so the residents know specifically? It's already done.
From what I understand, Mr. Valla has already gotten it on the website and on our social media, and we will have that on the TV once the meeting is completed.
Okay, yeah, I just was more worried about the recycling on Wednesday, so everybody knew to put it out on Wednesday, so.
And I also
Thank you,
requested that Waste Management contact their customer service department to make sure that their reps, when residents call the dedicated 1-800 number, that their reps are giving out this correct information.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Board. Have a good evening. Stay safe.
You too. Agenda number 8, consideration of approving a supply contract for Constellation Energy. Mr. Valla.
Everybody. So what we have before you is a bit of a routine item. So every few years, the township shops the open market, just like any resident can do, to try to get a more competitive energy rate. So the township shops electric utilities as well as gas for the supply side. So PICO is still our utility. That's who we pay our bills to. But we're looking for an updated supplier. Our current supply contract for natural gas expires at the end of this year. And so we are now eligible to shop the new rates. Good news for us is energy rates are at near historic lows. And even though we have a good rate this current term, we actually are able to get a better rate for the upcoming term. So our current rate for natural gas is about 44.1 cents per therm, which is the unit of measure for natural gas. And for a 3-year term, the lowest rate we have offered to us is about 41.59 cents per therm. And what that means kind of for everyday use, that turns into about $100 per month savings based upon our general use. And so over the course of a 3-year contract, there'll be about $3,600 of savings. I do want to point out that as the township continues to update different appliances and different mechanisms that are using these power sources, that those savings on the utility will compound. And so the lowest rate we have for a 36-month term is from a company called Constellation. And Constellation is actually the same supplier that has the electric utility for the township. And so the term would begin in January 2022 and would run for 36 months. And that results in about a 5.7% reduction in our natural gas costs. I'd be happy to entertain any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Valla? When would this take effect, Mr. Valla?
So this would take effect in January. And even though electric rates are at historic lows, we just began a new term back in May of 2020.
Thanks. Any questions? Is there a motion? Go ahead, Ms. Strauss.
I'll make a motion to authorize township staff to enter into an agreement with Constellation to supply natural gas for a term of 36 months beginning on January 1st, 2022.
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Payne. Seeing a motion and a second, is there any board questions? Any public questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Nay? Ayes have it, 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Valla.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Number 9, discussion of Steyer's Farm and Store. Ms. Teoli-Cools.
Thank you very much. So I will begin by giving a brief background. of the township's history with the Steyer property, and then I will turn it over to the board. In 1999, 21 years ago, Middletown Township purchased the 109-acre Steyer property from T. Walter Pop Steyer. Everyone knew him as Pop Steyer. And the township purchased it with a combination of township funding as well as with grant funding from the county and the state. At the time, Pop did not want to see the property developed. Instead, he was interested in preserving the farm as an asset for the community that would last long beyond his lifetime. He also was interested in providing affordable produce and a means to educate future generations about agriculture. And so for the past 20 years, Middletown Township has been involved with two separate leases for the orchard and the farm store. Because there are two separate agreements, there have been restrictions in place that limit the types of goods and services that each of the two lessees were able to provide. We have had a wonderful experience with both leases, and we are at the end of these two leases that were initially 10 years with two 5-year extensions, and they both have expired as of yesterday. The store operation lease was with Dave and Sharon Barbarides. They have maintained the store for most of the past 20 years, providing the fresh baked goods, apple cider, donuts, home accessories, as well as convenience food. The orchard lease was originally with Mike and Karen Field up until 2019 when the business was turned over to their son, Tim Field. And the Field family has operated the orchard and the pick your own operations at the orchard during the entire 20 years. And so over the past several years, as the expiration of the two 20-year leases approached, the clear resolve of the board has been that the best way to set up the Steyer property for the future and for future success would be to lease the property to one party so that the orchard and the farm could once again become complementary operations. Keeping true to the property's roots and to Pop Steyer's legacy, a farm, store, and orchard as one entity, allowing the harvest from the orchard to be retailed at the store. And so, in recognition of the positive relationships with both lessees, the Board of Supervisors gave both the Field and the Barbarides the opportunity to present proposals to take over the Steyer property as one operation. And so back in December, both the Fields and the Barbarides submitted formal proposals to the board. Since that time, the township staff and the Board of Supervisors have had the opportunity to review both proposals, to gather information, to visit the property, to ask questions, really just looking at the future opportunity. And so this evening, the Board of Supervisors will now have the opportunity to authorize a new lease that would unify the production of the sale of fresh produce, setting the stage for a new chapter in the farm's history. So I will turn it over to the board now. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Thank you, Ms. Tealy-Cools. I, for one, I mean, until I actually got on the board, I never knew that there was two leases there. And I never knew at the time, I always assumed that the farm was helping with what they grew on the farm. It was being sold in the store. It wasn't until probably about 4 or 5 years ago that I found out that it was not working that way. I agree with moving this into one lease and being able to utilize the farm and store as one instead of as two separate entities. So I support moving this forward into one lease. So with that, does anybody else have any comments on this?
I'll just briefly, I'll echo exactly what you said, Mr. Tosti. I too, until I was elected to the Board of Supervisors, was unaware that this was two separate leases, two separate operations. My feeling is that the previous setup really impeded both businesses, the store and the farm, from fulfilling their full potential. And so I too am of the mindset that we need to move forward with this as a single run enterprise so that both the farm and the store can work collectively, jointly as one single operation. I think that's really the best overall use of the property for the residents of the township.
Any other comments from the board? Well, I'll make a motion to authorize execution of a lease agreement for the Steyer's Farm and Steyer's Market with Tim Fields, Steyer Orchard Incorporated. Is there a second? Ms. Strauss?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any board questions? Any public questions? And I'll give it a minute. Mr. Valla?
There were no hands raised, Mr. Tosti.
Seeing none, there's a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nay? Ayes have it, 5-0. Congratulations to Mr. Fields, and moving forward, I wish you the best of luck in succeeding and bringing that together. I would also like to thank Mr. Dave and Sharon Barbarides and the employees at the market at Steyer's Orchard for their dedication and work in operating the farm store. The existing store employees are encouraged to submit applications for employment with the new operator. I think for the township, this is the best move that we could be doing. So I congratulate the board on making this move, because it's something that after 20 years, we can now put it all together, and what's sold at, or what's grown there at the farm can be sold there at the store. So good luck to all the parties, and thanks again. With that, we will move on to item number 10, considerate, and I'm going to combine 10 and 11. So I'll make consideration of accepting the resignation of Craig Myers from the Human Relations Commission, and as consideration of appointing Christine Ricardo Kizak to the Human Relations Commission. Is there a motion? Ms. Strauss?
Move to accept the resignation of Craig Myers with thanks for his service, and move to appoint Christine Ricardo Kizak to the Human Relations Commission.
I'll second.
Seeing a motion and a second, is there any board questions? Any public questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Nay?
Dane.
Thank you, Mr. Kizak. So it's 4-0 with one abstention. Congratulations, Ms. Kizak. And again, I'd like to thank Mr. Myers for his service with the Human Relations Commission. With that, we will go into other business. Mr. Esposito.
The only thing I had, Mr. Tosti, is I just wanted to make an announcement that the board did hold an executive session prior to tonight's meeting to discuss real estate matters as well as some personnel matters. Other than that, I don't have anything.
Thank you, Mr. Esposito. Mr. Kessler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Nothing further this evening.
Ms. Tealy Coles.
I would just like to recognize the efforts of all of our township employees out there working the storm right now. I've just received an updated weather report that it does look like the storm is going to continue through the night and through the day tomorrow. So just like to encourage folks to stay off the roads as much as they can and appreciate the efforts of our team out in the field right now.
Thank you, Ms. Haley-Coles. Ms. Strauss.
Was going to say the same as I'm sitting here looking out the window onto my street. I've seen the plow truck go by twice. So I thank the folks from Public Works and everybody in emergency management. I know they're working really hard and have been for almost, a full day straight at this point, and it doesn't show any signs of letting up. So very much appreciate their efforts. And if everybody could please just keep your cars off the road if you can, park them in your driveways for the night, and dig out your fire hydrants. Thanks.
Mr. Kizak.
Yeah, I think Ms. Strauss hit all the points. So thanks to the team and to our residents, stay safe and keep your cars off the roads. Thanks.
Ms. Payne.
I think everybody's covered everything. So I'll just echo the same and encourage everybody to, if you have to go out, please be careful.
Ms. Corporal.
It seems like it's all been said, so I just want to thank Public Works and remind everybody to be safe. Have fun out there.
All right, and I mean, I'm going to say the same thing, but I did want to say, I did talk to our staff. One of the things with this pandemic, it's really been affecting our kids and the things that they've been doing, whether it's school, after school activities, and some of the things like that. I asked the staff if they could put a link on the website for the activities coming up in the spring. So for the parents who want to have their children play with local sports clubs this year, our Middletown Park and Recs Department has compiled a list of local organizations, so you can easily search for each club's website and the sports that they offer. You can find this list of sports clubs on the township website, middletownbucks.org, and search for local sports organizations. The sports organizations did a great job offering the children a chance to get out and play in a safe manner last year, despite the pandemic concerns, and they plan to do the same this year. Each club submits its COVID plan to the Park and Recs Department to ensure it meets the Bucks County Health Department's requirements. So I just think, but when the spring comes, our kids are going to want to be getting out and wanting to do something, and anything that we can help to keep our kids active and keep them sane, we should try to do. So that will be on our website. If you're interested in that, please look for it and click the link. It's real simple to get to, and you'll see more organizations on there that I thought we had here in Middletown. So with that, I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All right, we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody, and stay safe.
Bye.